Woo! Welcome back to the second hour of Lovebabz Love Talk on Babz Rawls-Ivy, as promised. Hey, Enroue.
Hello, hello.
Nice to see you again.
So good to see you, as per usual.
How are you this fine Thursday? Thursday.
I am doing well.
Yeah,
Had a good morning.
it's good. Did
Yeah,
you enjoy Ross Gay the other night at Possible Futures?
glorious.
He's so witty and so very black.
Yeah, yeah, and just like a real um, beautiful heart. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
Yeah. Right. We got to open with some prayer because I hadn't heard it in a minute from you. I've heard it a lot in Senegal, but I have not heard your voice.
Mm, wonderful. So, as per usual, we will start with this ancestor chant, thanking them for what they've left for us, these blessings, and letting them know that we're using these blessings today. Ibababa tofu wa ṣe o. Ibababa tofu wa ṣe. Ibababa tofu wa ṣe o. Ibababa tofu wa ṣe. Àṣẹ te fún wa là ń lò yìí o. Ibababa tofu wa ṣe. Ìbáyéyé tó fún wa ṣe o. Ìbáyéyé tó fún wa ṣe. Ìbáyéyé tó fún wa ṣe o. Ìbáyéyé tó fún wa ṣe. Àṣetè fún wa là ń lò yìí o. Ìbáyéyé tó fún wa ṣe. Ìbá egungun tó fún wa ṣe o. Ìbá egungun tó fún wa ṣe. Ìbá egungun tó fún wa ṣe o. Ìbá egungun tó fún wa ṣe. Àṣetè fún wa là ń lò yìí o. Ìbá egungun tó fún wa ṣe. Ìbá egungun tó fún wa ṣe. Ìbá egungun tó fún wa ṣe. Ashe.
Say amen.
Ashe, Ashe, Amen, Ashe, all the
How are you
things.
feeling these days? So much
Um,
unrest going on, so much discourse. But I mean, in between the discourse, there's celebratory things and living goes on.
yeah.
But there's still a great deal of pushback on humans being human.
Yes. And so there's like all the specifics and the particulars of um, suffering, dehumanization, clearly the climate crisis is at, unprecedented levels. Um, and what I would say to that actually is something that I think is true and has been true for us as peoples for a long time is finding those things, even in the midst of such pain and suffering, that connects us to really the wonder and beauty of life, the things that actually humanize us. Not to um, avoid pain and suffering, um, but to actually it enables us to be with it in a different way without falling into despair or hopelessness. Um, and then we can, I find, at least for me, I'm able to like be present and more skillful in how I want to deal with that suffering and that pain versus um, falling into reactivity, anger, frustration, right, pain, sorrow, all the things, and like that kind of blinding me or dictating how I want to interact with other people or issues.
Hmm.
Um, so and that can be harder, right? Because I mean, I grew up, my parents were both activists and organizers and revolutionaries, and um, growing up with also this sense of, right, kind of charging into the fray, um, as the kind of primary um, response, galvanizing, right, the kind of anger and frustration, like funneling that, or maybe not even funneling, but just like unloading that towards whatever is the target. Um, and that can also be, so that's a very human response. And I find that um, it can really lead to more suffering,
Mm.
really lead to more pain, not just in terms of like an action or a tactic, but like community, like people, right? And um, it's not an easy thing, and there's a lot of we're in a society that cultivates vengeance as a response, as a primary response, right? There's so many examples. I mean, the one that jumps to mind is, after 9/11, right? This two, actually, there were two responses. One was like vengeance, right? You're either on our side or you're against us, and we're coming after you, and we'll, you know, pick a target. Not necessarily the right target, but we'll pick a target, right? Number one. And number two was go shopping, right?
Oh.
Those were like the two cultural responses to that tragedy and horror and the great amount of pain and suffering that was involved in that. And so we are raised in a culture where that's the response to pain, right? Or direct pain, indirect pain, perceived pain. Those are like the cultivated easy channels. And so it's very challenging and takes a different kind of work to cultivate a different response. Um, but what I wanted is, it's funny. I can feel it like a slide into a thing in like the conversation. And I also really want to orient towards like, okay, so what is this? What are these practices that connect us? Connect us even as like, with Ross Gay, like the beauty, freedom, hopefulness, playfulness, joy that is also here, that we also get to foster, nurture, and be nurtured by. Um, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about the frame of how, at least in this Yoruba practice, we kind of work with that. If that's okay, Ms. Babz.
I love it. Let's get into it.
So, I've been in this practice for a long time. I came into it in the early '90s, and then went to Nigeria and was initiated as a devotee of Ifa in 2000, and then have been having my own practice, and then, you know, have been a priest for a long time, and so working with others and supporting others. And I have like a simple frame of what this spiritual practice is. So it's three things: give something, say something, and listen.
Mm.
So the give something connects to this um, belief, framework, perspective that, and well, reality is that, like, so life is change all the time, right? That's the nature of reality, right? We are changing. We are kind of uh, being born and dying all the time. Literally, our cells of our body, right? So we're literally not the same person as we were even when we woke up this morning, literally, on a cellular level. Um, so for our lives to have some stability and to be relevant, we need to kind of make choices, and we can call that like we're making sacrifices, like we're going to do this thing and not that thing, right? If I want to develop skills, I have to put time and energy into those skills and not into other things. if I want to be in a relationship with this particular person, I need to feed that and nourish that and do things with that person differently than with somebody else. And we also do that in our relationships with our ancestors and with the divine, with the, in this system, the Orisha. And so we nurture those relationships by giving to them. Right? You may not speak literally the same language as somebody else, but if somebody like invites you in and feeds you, there's things happening, right? There's a nourishment in that relationship, or is kind to you, right? There's things that are done that inform us that like, oh, this is good for me. I can give into this, right? I'll nurture this relationship. And so we do that with our ancestors. We make time to sit with them. We create an honoring space for them. People call them a shrine or an altar, whatever you want to call it, or just a mantle, right? I mean, in so many ways, you know, as Black people in this country, differently than the Caribbean, because our Africanness culturally was maintained differently in these different places in the diaspora. And so here, right, there's a lot of things that we maintain or understand, even as we don't necessarily trace them back to either Yoruba or other indigenous African practices. And so like having a place to literally go to honor our ancestors is regular. I mean, that's a regular indigenous African thing. People do that in different ways in different places because, as you know, right, Africa is not a thing. It's what we call a continent with lots of countries and even more peoples, right? More ethnic groups in it. And so we give something, and that might be our time, our attention, creating a space for them, but also we give them so something literally like so when we make food, we take a little portion of that and we set that aside on this honoring place. You see, you know, we have an understanding of what libations are, right? Those are offerings, right? We're offering whatever we're pouring to our ancestors or to the earth or to that place. That's a nourishing, right? We're giving up something to give them something to welcome them in relationship. So that's the giving, right? Which is just an action. Saying something, that's our expression. Prayers, talking, you know, we don't have to approach our ancestors like they're the enlightened, holy beings, all good, and stuff, right? There are people, so we can talk to them about our lives, about our struggles, even about being angry with them, or frustrated, or scared, or confused, or curious. Might feel lost, but we express ourselves to them because we understand in this tradition and so many that fundamentally they love and support us and want us to be well, just in a simple way, not like you have to do it this way. In an overall, in a simple way, the viewpoint is that our ancestors just want us to have a good life. We're here now. We're the ones alive. They had their time, so they're like, yes, life is this good here, right? That chant, there's ashe, there's these things to be passed down and to use to activate. And so prayer, song, movement, writing, like expression of who we are, what we're seeking, gratitude, that's the say something. And then listen. How are you going to go somewhere, right, to honor someone or get some advice or be with someone and not listen, right, to what they have to say? And so that can, again, look like different things. And that means different things for different people. Sometimes that's a feeling one gets in one's body. Some people literally may, right, these thoughts or things emerge or voices emerge or they see things, but it's a receiving. It's a time to be receptive. Because we also, you know, fundamentally understand that, you know, our ancestors, so our bodies, our sense organs come from our ancestors. It's look, DNA combines, here we are, creation of a body, sense organs, right? So how I see things is related to how my ancestors saw things, how I smell, how I taste, how I touch, how I hear. And then we have all the unknown, kind of unregistered senses that we might also have, right? So these things come from our ancestors and our people. So let us also be open to receiving from them something. And we can do that and listen to our bodies, listen to like ourselves as an instrument, have some quiet time or contemplative time, or however it's easy for you to be in a state of being receptive. And that's the practice. 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, like do that. Sometimes the listening is important you do first. Oh, where am I? How am I? What's happening for me now? And then I'll give something, or then I'll say something after I have tuned into where I'm at.
Mhm.
Or maybe I just have some things I have to say, and then here's this offering, and then I'll listen. Like the order is less important, but I find that those are the kind of main elements to engage in this relationship with our ancestors. And with the Orisha, we do the same thing. You go to the ocean, you do the same thing. That's a being. That's Olokun. That's the name of the Orisha
Mhm.
from the Yoruba perspective. Olokun. You can bring something, you can say something, and you can listen. And what the ocean has to say is different from what your ancestors have to say. What a river has to say to the same problem is going to be different. What the mountain has to say is going to be different. And that's how we tune into all of these forces. That's how we honor those relationships and grow those relationships so that we can be here as people in relationship to all these non-people because we're all interconnected.
So does this practice require a everyday commitment several times a day? Because Muslims pray like 5 times a day, and
Yeah, there's
some
not a
some Christians go to mass in the middle of the day, or some people. I mean, you know what I mean? Like what?
so different lineages approach that differently. There's a traditional calendar, which is actually a
Hmm.
4-day week among the Yoruba. And each day has a different kind of divinity connected to it. So one could, oh, I'm making offerings to this divinity and praying to this one this day, or these several ones on this day, and this. So, how much time do you have, right? You could be in prayer all day, right? And there's other
I
things we
am
also
in
have to
prayer
do.
all day.
Right. But there's like explicit, right? There's like, oh, I'm engaging in this um, as a practice, and then so there are things on different cycles, but it's less. Some people in the morning, and there's some morning prayers they'll do maybe at the end of the day. So it's more fluid and flexible. But if somebody wanted to dig in and have a really tight container for their spiritual practice, one can do that also.
Mm,
I find doing something daily, like anything, the more you do anything, the more skilled at that you will be, whether
yes.
it's whether it's positive or negative. That's how we work, right? I numb out every day. I get very good at that. I exercise every day. I get very good at that. I get some good sleep. I get very good at that. I do spiritual practice. I'm very good at that. And so they touch different things. Um, so, I'm the type of person whose spiritual practice is, I need that for my well being. It's a fundamental thing that it's not extra. It's not like, oh, I'll do this and I'll just feel relaxed. It just helps me. It's like my like fundamental well-being and connection to meaning and purpose in life is directly connected to my spiritual practice.
Mm,
But that's me, right? Everyone has like their specialty or the thing that orients them. So find that. It doesn't have to, oh, you have to do this to be this kind of devotee. But if you want a relationship, just like with other human beings, if you never talk to somebody, right? How's that going to develop? Right?
That's a very good point.
So you don't go to your ancestors. They're there. They I mean they're waiting for you. They're around all the time. But if you don't go to them, how will you cultivate an intimate, direct relationship? Not the idea of a relationship. Not like, yes, I honor where I come from, but like, oh, my relationship to them has something for me in the present to help me live in this actual life, which goes to this other fact of like, oh, all this, you know, so many things are just awful that are happening, right? And there's not going to be a shortage of that happening in the future either. Um, and so engaging in practices that connect us to um, life, not only through those channels of suffering, is really important.
Mm.
Like we have to find, I've had to find, the sense of me as a human being, not through the lens of like US culture, because that's not a lens that humanizes me. Right? And so that's important that we find those things.
But when you made the decision to become a priest in this faith, I mean that's that's just not like me like studying Yoruba and it's like, okay, I want to pick up some of these practices. I mean,
Yes.
that's a whole next level kind of commitment. I don't
Yeah.
know if commitment is the right word, but
Oh yeah.
I would say commitment.
But so what I love, the way I love to talk about it is like that's just like my specialty. I love like, and I come from people who it was really important to be in a both a particular kind of experience with the divine, whether
Mhm.
that was in the AME church or Methodist church, or people who were Muslim or Buddhists, or right, you keep going back, or Yoruba or Risha practitioners or other earth-based practitioners. In all so many parts of my family, just like there were those who were stonemasons, wood carvers, woodworkers, and so we talk about that ashe. So the ashe that they have left for me, I have a particular sensitivity and kind of visual problem solving, puzzling that I can helps me to like build things, right? Also, particular sensitivity and desire to be in a certain kind of relationship with the divine, and then also to help people do that as well. Some people, they want to be a car mechanic, and they go deep into that, and they get a garage. Now, it's fine for everyone. I think, let me learn how to like do some things on my car, right? It's not like I can't do anything. But then there's a level like I can't do this anymore. I need someone with like can lift the engine out of the car or understands a particular sound. And so there's people who've done a deeper dive into that.
Mhm.
Right? We do that, and those are our like specialties. So yes, like being a Ifa priest, being a Babalawo, being an Awo, being a priest, period, and whatever tradition is about a commitment, whether there's infrastructure around it or not, right? So if I wanted to go into priesthood in Christianity or Islam or Judaism, or even Buddhism, there are infrastructures that I could go to and rely on. I go to seminary, I go to divinity school. There was a point when I was looking at divinity schools in this time when I was looking at grad schools before I became a social worker. And I was like, that'd be great. And I was like, they're they're all really centered around Christianity. Maybe there's some Judaism in some, right? But like, there's not like indigenous seminary, right? Indigenous divinity school. I was like, what? Oh,
I love that.
But in terms of like social structure, there are, but that means you go find elders, you go find teachers, you sit with people. It's a more traditional way of learning. Also there's also because there's not the same kind of infrastructure. Some of that is changing bit by bit, but these are the reality. But that doesn't matter because there's still this, for me, this like, oh, there's something in this, and it's something where I just get to, it's not about somebody going through me, but let me help you understand that you have this relationship. You have a relationship with your people, with your ancestors. I can help you with the practice and the skills and the learning, but ultimately that's your relationship with your people. It doesn't go through me. It's your relationship with the divine. It doesn't go through me. Again, I can help shape, here's some chants, or here's some frameworks to understand, here are ways to have a practice, but the practice is for you to have your relationship with them. And, I just keep learning and trying to help out in the ways that I can.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fundamentally not different from any other kind of specialist, right? You gotta go to the dentist. Oh, wait, can't do well. I think I'll look at some YouTube videos on like how to do some dental work. Like that's a recipe for
As soon as
disaster.
you said that, I know darn well there are people who are
Who are doing that? I
who are
know.
doing that.
Right. And when you learn that, you're like, oh, I'm not gonna go to them. Hopefully, right? Hopefully, I mean, and again, there's all kinds of flexibility in terms of like what's access and who's what, and who learns, how people learn, right? There's not like kind of one way, but just to get the point of, yes, it's a commitment, but so many things are. Right? And I say it that way because many times people are like, oh, you are something, and want to kind of elevate certain people above other people. And I mean, I need it. Not everybody needs it like I need it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So when do you practice as you live and
All
breathe
the time.
all the
so
time?
so so there are ways of like feeling that connection. To me, part of the goal is kind of feeling this connection, this relationship, and the beauty of it and the nourishment of it outside of like, oh, here's my prayer time. Like to me,
Okay.
that's the point.
Okay.
Like let me really, and so that's this like feeling joy, um, feeling wonder, looking at the world through that lens of like life. Life is a wonder. Life is a precious, precious thing. We are not here long.
We are not.
Things are coming and going all the time. Our bodies are changing, the world is changing, our family's changing, like all the things. It turns out, these turns out when you listen to elders, there's a lot that's just true, right? In terms of like living a life. Like, oh, people passing away, you're going through these different cycles, body starts to change, like, oh yeah, you're not 16 to 20 forever, and that's not the point. But how we learn to live with the reality of everything changing all the time is important. So to also directly answer your question, like I try to do some prayer, and so it could look like a lot of different things. So some version of the like, give something, say something, listen, usually in the mornings and then at the end of the day. Sometimes if I'm really loving it, it might even be 3 times a day. Sometimes it's about at home, I might do a thing, but then if I'm out and I go for, a walk or something in nature, that's also a prayerful time for me. And so I'll go explore and then just sit somewhere and really feel into and listen to what's around me. What is life saying? And that can be harder for me, like downtown. I mean, it's still saying something, but
Yeah, yeah.
there's so much, just for me, like kind of being in nature is a place that's much easier to be And this is actually changing some now. So it used to be being in nature was like the place to like be really open and letting go of a lot of the notions of who I am, who I am, who I think other people think I am, all the things. But that's shifting as my, since I closed the therapy part of my practice, I've been doing more spiritual work for other people, but I've also been really deepening my own spiritual practice. And that's really had really significant benefit in my
Well, I
life and
know
my
some of your
relationships.
fans, Bahad and um, uh, Mr. Irizarry.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fans of theirs too,
Yeah.
But the connection to life and this piece around joy and peace and wonder and openness, even as there is massive suffering happening. That's really also close to home, right? It's things that are touching my family, and there's like regular life stuff around like health and well-being, and those go through its cycles. And thankfully, there's better health now with a lot of folks. But there's things happen in the world, in Israel and Gaza. There's this climate crisis. There's things happening, big and small, among my extended family or Yoruba people. There's things happening different spots in the States, right? There's like, we got like this overarching election stuff happening, and like how hopeful or not is that? And what is the rise of real hatred and violence and dehumanizing that's happening in so many places, and a reduction of people's capacity to value life and to value human beings, which, as someone who also, holds like justice frameworks, to me, that also really stems out of the kind of abolition movement of valuing human lives and then
Mm-hmm.
creating systems and structures to do that, and getting rid of systems and structures that are not valuing human lives. So it's not just let's get rid of prisons, get rid of certain kind of punishment and attitudes and structures, but it's actually creating and fostering our capacity to value human lives, and then create structures and systems and practices and policies that do that. And that will be just better for everybody. But that's clearly not the system that we're in.
Clearly.
So, yeah. So
Clearly.
that's my spiel.
I love it. It's a good spiel. It is. It's a good spiel. I appreciate it. And um I don't know, something about you and the way that you walk with your face, I find quite engaging and
Mm,
speaks to me on some
mm,
level. That I always feel like, after I leave these conversations, I take in more of the practice. Do
mm.
you know what I mean? Like I just take
Yeah.
in more of the practice.
Yeah. And that to me, that's like, I mean, that's beautiful, and thank you, and I'm happy for you, and really for other folks to like find, this is not a secret, this is not, kind of finding our way to like these practices. I don't have the date offhand, but if people are interested, they can send me an email at Enroue, ENROUE, at healingandliberation.com. I'm going to be on a interfaith panel next week, sponsored by the Community Healing Network. So this
Mm-hmm.
interfaith panel on ancestors. And what's striking to me, and we touch upon this some, is that um, for as African heritage people, we come from thousands of years of honoring our ancestors in practice as a part of our like culture and religion, like that's embedded in it together. And now there are very few explicit practices to connect with our ancestors, within Christianity, within Islam, within Judaism, um, that aren't don't do like kind of a big picture ancestors, like a culture ancestor, but I'm talking about like your blood and bones, greats, great greats, you know, aunties and uncles, those folks. And in some of the prep for this panel, it is striking to me the absence and the longing for that. And really what I want to say, and what I'm sure you also saw when you were in West Africa, is that like, so there are actual practices that we can do today to do that. And we can actually kind of find our way to use these tools and these technologies now, not to I have to go back to some long lost version of myself, but to incorporate those things now. And I think one thing I want to say to people is that you can find that. You can find your way into those practices, and let the reality of what that means inform the totality of your religious and spiritual growth and experience in this time. And so it's really this like offering, and you know, hope that people really give themselves permission for practices that they know they already feel are there, right? People feel a connection to their ancestors, and to let people know there are technologies and practices to engage in that, and to find your way in that, and to just talk to them, and to listen, and to honor them, because they're your people, regardless of your actual faith. They're like legit, unquestionably your people who want you to be well and who love you.
Thank you so much for being such a great guest today, and
Thanks,
I will
Babz.
see you soon.
I will see you very soon.
Listen, Enroue is a regular. He's one of the few people that is a bona fide regular to this stage.
Such a blessing.
And because I need it, and I appreciate you being here and teaching and allowing us to take it all in. I appreciate it. So
thank you, Babz.
all right.
Always a joy. And thank you,
Until the
Harry.
next time, send me some dates, brother.
Alrighty, we'll do the thing.
Say hi to everybody at your house, and
All right.
I will see you soon, Enroue. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Yes, love and blessings to you and everyone. All right.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you. All right, Doreen. I know you're back there. Play us out. Play us some music. Nora, Harry, somebody. I'm on my way out. I'll see y'all tomorrow. I have a guest tomorrow. Leap. Leap is going to be here tomorrow. We're going to be talking about leap year. So I'll see y'all.